Hey guys, October 27th, 2025 here with your after hours recap. So quick and easy, this weekend there was a bit of, they said, framework for a deal between the United States and China that led to a gap up overnight in the NASDAQ and of course some continuation today. Really taking out that 10/10s high on Friday and then some continuation today. And most importantly, we are being led by quality stocks. I mentioned I do own the MAGS ETF and really nice gap up and continuation today. And that is something to be expected when you've got your MAGS, your Magnificent Seven, Apple acting really well. You had Tesla, obviously a little bit hot and cold here over the last couple days, but really nice pushback out today. You had Google continuing to act fantastic, $270 now. Just really nice continuation. Meta, nice job getting back over the 50 simple moving average. And Amazon, same deal, back over the 50 simple moving average. So when you start to get quality names pick back up, even a Palantir go and hit a new all-time high today, that is really conducive to the market obviously going higher. Again, what does it mean with the quote-unquote framework between the United States and China? I don't know, and to be quite honest with you, I do not care. What is important is, some of the things that had gotten crowded on the long side, which was gold, is still continuing lower, and that is playing out very expected. Obviously, when the GDX got itself down to the 50-day, I did go ahead and take my nugget trade off, but today you did take out those lows, and for me it wasn't more than just a trade, and this was a very quick move down. I didn't need to own it anything past that, but it does appear like gold for now about 4,400 may have hit his peak. And we really don't have that kind of crowded positioning when we think about the NASDAQ or the S&P 500 and really even the Russell. So it does feel like there might still be a little bit of juice in the tank, but really the best time to have bought stocks were when they were bouncing off their 50 simple moving average last week instead of really chasing stocks higher. If you chase some stocks higher today, it's likely that you just ended up chopping yourself up. For instance, I thought CoreWeave was buyable last Wednesday off the 50 simple, and then today, if you kind of chased it up, well, more than likely, you took a 5-minute opening range break and then you're stopping yourself out, sometime early in the morning, only to see it kind of rebound into the close. So that's just kind of the deal. You don't really want to chase stocks. You get a little bit extended in the market in just a short amount of time, and then the market has these checkbacks or really can just digest for a few hours, and then these stocks can act a little bit volatile intraday. And we talked about it a little bit in the room. Typically buying the close, selling the open has been a much more profitable strategy than buying the open and selling the close. In other words, day trading is much more of a pain in the ass than it is to hold things overnight and swing trade, which is part of the reason why I did hold on to the names that I bought last week. And, for the most part, they ended up working out fairly well. TEM, another one of these where you gap up overnight, you kind of wash out a little bit, but you still hold on to Friday's lows, and then you start to ramp right back up. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Dell with some continuation, which is exactly what I wanted to see. BABA, obviously, with the China resolution, that is exactly what you wanted to see. PDD, not one that I own anymore, but again, exactly what you want to see. New highs in this formation since we bottomed. So nice price action, really all over the market, in particular in names that have been quality. And that's the most important part. I still think, crude oil stocks are hanging in there pretty well. I got to give some honorable mention to Bitcoin and Ethereum with a pretty nice gap up on Bitcoin and really Ethereum too. Trying to get back over the 50 simple moving average. So I'm going to give it a little bit of credit. I don't know what happens for the remainder of the week, but ultimately we need to be, a little bit patient there. And really, I looked at, and part of the reason that I, closed my UAMY and closed my nugget and My thinking was we would be due for a multi-day bounce, and that's kind of what we got. And then, today and maybe tomorrow, I figured we would start to see a little bit more of volatility, whether it was in the quantums or the nuclears or, the data center stocks. But the reality is that we're not seeing a ton of it just yet. Riot, I believe, new all-time or not new all-time closing high, but new closing high here. I want to say this is 52 weeks, so that's good to see if you're a fan of Riot. Cypher, same kind of deal, hanging in there, fairly nicely. Could this thing continue higher tomorrow? It is very possible, but part of me still thinks that, when I look at an IONQ and I look at an Oklo, my brain is still kind of leaning on the side of that was the high for some of these names this year. Can some others go higher? I think it's possible, but I won't be too surprised if some of these names can continue to come under pressure, later this week or even as soon as tomorrow. SNDK finally, after just going completely vertical today, finally unwind some on a bit of a pickup in volume. Not totally unsurprising considering how extended from the 50 you were, and you were seeing something similar in a WDC. You were seeing something similar in an STX. So, these names pausing a little bit longer, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. But ultimately, the market, we kind of continue to get through this earnings season. Semiconductors, I still think continue to act great. NVIDIA held on to the 50 simple moving average a few days ago, and really, really nice push out. Very similar to, the NASDAQ. Really, as NVIDIA goes, so goes the market. We talked about Apple effectively at a new all-time high and then some. Really did a nice job taking out that 260 level, and here we go. We are going higher. So it kind of feels like we may have an end-of-year rally. I think that that's totally possible, but just be on the lookout. Don't get too aggressive, buying these big gap ups. You should have already done your job, buying some names last Wednesday, and maybe you didn't, but Thursday and Friday. And then, of course, everybody gets euphoric on Monday because things are gapping up and you feel like you're missing stuff. If you're going to buy names, make sure that they're quality. But, even remember, you go into a Palantir today and you're telling yourself you want to buy it over that all-time high 190 level. Well, look at what they just do to you today, right? Just absolutely piss poor action where it's like, okay, 190 is that level. And really, if you're buying a 5-minute opening range break, you're effectively buying it when all this little supply is coming into the market just over that level. And ultimately, it ends up going nowhere. So you might not be sitting there too comfortably. Instead, if you were looking at Wednesday, what did this thing end up doing? Well, nothing wrong at all, just coming into the 50-day and bouncing. And you can look at a Robinhood did the same thing, NBIS did the same thing, CoreWeave did the same thing, NVIDIA did the same thing, where you just undercut the 50 or come right down to it, hold it, bounce it. And really that's kind of some of the best ways to get involved into the market when you start to get a little bit stretched. And, we might be there on the market. So just kind of keep your head on a swivel. I don't see any reason to be negative. We will continue to watch the market. Obviously, CLS reported in after hours. Higher we go, 327. That is just unbelievable for this stock. RMBS is another one of these that reported in after hours, and we are down to the 5 simple moving average prices not seen since last Friday. So I still think a lot of these names are fine. I still think semiconductors are fine. I still think software stocks are fine. I still think cybersecurity looks pretty good. Got to give a little bit of honorable mention to the cryptos. Those are hanging in there, and gold is doing exactly what I expected, which is unwinding some of that long positioning. And back under 4,000 we go. I don't think I've ever seen more chest pumping when something broke over 4,000 as I did with gold. It's like, this thing has been in an uptrend since last year, March. But now you get over 4,000. It's like, well, you have to have gold allocation because it's the debasement trade. It's the, it's the uncertainty trade. It's the, the dollars getting crushed trade. It's the, it's gold is now momentum. So there's a lot of that. And of course, nobody was telling you to buy the GLD when it was 180. They need to tell you how much you need to own it when it's, near 400. in 16, 18 months. So that's usually never the right time to be loading it up when it's mentioned on CNBC every 35 minutes. And just kind of good food for thought going forward. Like I said, I had a nice trade there. I am no longer sitting in my nugget short, but ultimately it was a super, super nice trade. I am still sitting in ARK. I think this thing looks fantastic. I am sitting in BABA, and I bought this thing on Friday, acting really, really well. Dell I bought last Thursday, and also nice little march up for the last few days. The MAGS ETF acting fantastic. Oracle, no excuse whatsoever for this thing finishing right on the day. I did cut half into the close. I told myself if the market starts to come under any sort of pressure, let's just say tomorrow, which by the way, any sort of pressure would be just fine and healthy, but Oracle being red on a day like today, absolutely no excuse. So I did lighten up on half. I wouldn't be too surprised if I'm knocked out of my other half, probably tomorrow. But unacceptable for this thing to be red on a market up day like today. I still have my Rigetti short from Friday, and you're kind of just rejecting the 20 simple moving average. Rocket Lab I still have from inside this base, and I'm just comfortable to let it work as long as we're above the 20 simple moving average. TEM obviously with a little bit of a gap up, bought this thing as well on Friday. And then Tesla still continuing to act well. I did add some more today around that 452 level. So we will just continue to let these names work. And I do have a small short that I put on today in iron, which I would look to add to if we can start to come under pressure in like an iron, Cypher, HUD, etc. So I'm not necessarily convinced that you come under pressure like this and you V-shape recover right back up to highs, but I've been wrong before. So just kind of keeping an open mind and being comfortable playing both sides of the market if that's where I think that the risk reward lies. So hopefully you guys all had a great trading day. I guess I should also make mention steel is acting pretty great, NUE, but this is not probably stocks that a lot of you guys would find yourself trading, but ultimately NUE acting really well. STLD recently just saw a new high, and this one's got a huge weekly base. And then CLF was one that got beaten up on the day, which gold names got beaten up, but you are hanging in there fairly well. So we'll see, and we'll see if some of the battery stocks maybe want to bounce back tomorrow. Lithium, kind of just teetering on the edge there with ALB, but really still a lot of nice charts out there. So continue to just make sure you set your alerts, try to get involved slowly, and then don't hold on to the stocks that are acting poorly when the market is acting this well. That's exactly why I got rid of half of my Oracle. Absolutely no excuse. I'm happy to buy some back and add some more when it's actually showing some relative strength. Again, hopefully you guys all had a great trading day, and I will see you guys bright and early in the morning. Cheers.